Hello there, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm Brian Manning, and welcome to the Asylum Answers Show. I'm an asylum lawyer. My law firm is based in Houston, Texas, and we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Hey, Saida, how are you? Already getting started off with the comments on YouTube. Hello, Ismail, good to see you. TikTok, how are you doing? All right, I'm going to take your questions. I'm going to answer whatever questions you have about asylum in the United States. That's what my law firm does all day, every day. You might have noticed that when I was introducing myself a second ago, I didn't say I'm an immigration lawyer. I said I'm an asylum lawyer. Now, that distinction is, to my mind, significant, okay? My law firm is not an immigration law firm. We're an asylum law firm, okay? We do asylum. We don't take on really other kinds of cases. I mean, there's some rare exceptions, like if one of our clients gets asylum and then wants to get the green card based on their asylee status, we'll help with that. But that's about it. We don't spread ourselves thin doing all kinds of things. We want to be really, really, really good. We want to be the best. We want to be the very best at one thing, helping people secure their future in America through asylum. We want to be great at asylum. So, excuse me. So that's what we do all day, every day. Say hello. Let me know in the questions, in the comments, what questions you have. Say where you're watching from. I'd love to hear where you guys are at. Send a shout out. Say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. If you want to let me know what country you're from too, I love hearing that as well. For those who just joined, hey, I'm TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, well, my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. So I'm going to take your questions. Go ahead and start leaving your questions. Say this says on YouTube, hello, how are you? Hey, good to see you. I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for asking. Thanks for being here. On TikTok, all right, I'm going to get to your substantive questions about asylum in just a second. Let me say a couple words about something else first, though. All right. The asylum officer at the USCIS asylum office, or the immigration judge, if your case is pending in immigration court, well, they don't care about your fancy college degree. They don't care about your important, prestigious job. They don't care about the fact that maybe you employ people here in the United States, that you're providing jobs to Americans, to people here in the USA. They don't care that you're a good, decent family man or family woman. They don't care about that stuff, okay? None of that is going to help you to win your asylum case. I get questions about this all the time, like, hey, do I need to go out of my way to make sure that the judge knows that, I got my college degree and I'm doing great, I've got a job and I do community service and I'm active with my church. Can I put that stuff in my application and make sure it comes up at my interview? You can, but you don't need to. In fact, you shouldn't, because you're then spending your time and energy on trying to have the judge or asylum officer focus on things that do not help move your asylum case forward. They don't care about that stuff, okay? Okay, let me back up and say, like, maybe there's a tiny bit of sort of subconscious benefit that this has, right? If you create an overall favorable impression on the asylum officer or judge by showing them that, hey, you're an impressive person, or you're the kind of person that we want living here in the United States. I mean, okay, there's a tiny bit of value to that, okay? But I'm telling you, it is nowhere near as important as showing them how you actually qualify with the actual asylum requirements, all right? There are certain things that you have to show that you meet, that you match up with in order for them to be able to approve your asylum case. And that's what they want to know. That's what they want to focus on. And listen, asylum officers and immigration judges are completely overwhelmed. I used to be an asylum officer with the government, so I know how hard this is, okay? Being an asylum officer is not easy. They're completely overwhelmed with work. Whoa, where'd we go? There I am. They're completely overwhelmed with work, all right? And the working conditions are stressful. USCIS is not a pleasant place to work. The morale is terrible, okay? And they just want to get to the point, all right? They just want to know, do you meet the actual asylum requirements? And when you're trying to put in front of them, oh, but look at this. Oh, but have you considered the fact that, I've got this nice job, I make good money, I pay my taxes, this, that, and the other, All that, I know it's natural to think that, yeah, that's important and that matters, and you want people to know that, especially someone who's about to make this monumental decision in your life. But I got to tell you, you're barking up the wrong tree, to use an expression that I don't know where that comes from, but you're going in the wrong direction. You're wasting time and energy, and you're actually just distracting from the things that the officer or judge really want to know about. What do they want to know about? I've got lots of videos on my YouTube channel all about this question. For those of you on TikTok, listen, go to my YouTube channel. Facebook, go to YouTube. That's where all my best stuff is, okay? On TikTok and on LinkedIn and Facebook, you're going to see these lives that I've got here, and I will do some other things on those platforms. But if you really want to find all my best tips for how to increase your chances for asylum success, how to give yourself the best possible chance to win your asylum case, go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. That's the name of my law firm, and it's also the name of my YouTube channel. Again, it's called Political Asylum Lawyers. And you're going to find their playlists of some really helpful tutorials and trainings and other videos that are really detailed, some of them, okay? If you look for the playlist that says something like detailed asylum trainings, you're going to find some super detailed tutorials, trainings that are going to give you a ton of information that I think can really help you increase your chances for asylum success. So go there. All right. The point, though, that I wanted to make with this little monologue at the beginning of this asylum answer show is that you are doing yourself a disservice if you're trying to get the judge or the officer to focus on things that don't matter to your asylum case. You want to focus on the asylum eligibility requirements. What are those? Well, there's three main things. I mean, there's a lot that goes into showing that you qualify for asylum, right? But there's three principal things, three core things in any asylum case. What are they? Past persecution. Have you been harmed in the past in a way that is sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution, to meet the persecution threshold, to be considered persecution, as that word is used in U.S. asylum law? Number two is forward-looking future persecution. Is it likely that you're going to be harmed in the future that is so bad that it can count as persecution? What is there that makes us believe that, yeah, you're really at risk? Someone really is likely to seriously harm you if you have to go back to your country. Then the third thing is called nexus. Basically, this is like motivation. What is it that's motivating the bad guys to want to persecute you? Because you see, it's not enough just to show that you've been persecuted or that you're likely to be persecuted, but rather you also have to show that the motivation behind it is the fact that you, as the asylum seeker, possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under U.S. asylum law. So what are those things? They're your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Now, again, lots goes into putting on an effective asylum case and really doing everything possible to show why you should win asylum. But those are the 3 core elements, all right? Explaining what's happened to you in the past, explaining why it is that you're at risk in the future, and then why are you at risk? What's motivating the bad guys to persecute you? And it's got to be one of those 5 things: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. All the other stuff about, oh, I'm a good person, I have a good job, I have a fancy college degree, none of that really matters, okay? All right, let's go to the questions. Very good to see you. All right. Hello, Ismail. Anita on YouTube says, hi, sir. Hello there. All right. So Chander says on YouTube, hi, Brian. I've applied for Form I-589 in California. Can I give my fingerprints for a work permit in some other state? Can it affect my asylum case? All right. So after the question is, can you do your USCIS biometrics appointment, which is an appointment you have to go to after applying for asylum? Can you do that appointment in another state from the one that you were living in when you applied for asylum? Well, you don't really get a choice, first of all. You don't just get to say, hey, I want to go have my biometrics appointment here. It's given based on your address, the address that USCIS has for you. If you applied for asylum and you have not changed your address or not notified USCIS of a change of address since you applied, they're going to send you to a biometrics appointment office that's near the address that you gave on your asylum application form. If you've moved, then you need to tell USCIS that you've moved. You need to fill out Form AR11 online and you need to get a copy of that, the PDF that it creates. It's like, hey, this is your AR-11. You need to email that to the asylum office and say, hey, I did a change of address online. I wanted you to be aware of my move, because guess what? That online AR-11 system is not actually connected to the asylum offices. It's incredible in this day and age that they still have this massive, massive blind spot, this ridiculous setup, but that's how it is. So anyway, you're going to get the appointment that's going to be tied to your address that USCIS has on the books for you. So if you've moved, you got to do this update, right? And then you're going to get your biometrics appointment at a location that's near your current address, or the one that USCIS has for you. So will moving to some other place affect your underlying asylum case? No, not substantively. But going from living near San Francisco, if you then move down to Miami, you're going to have your case transferred from San Francisco to the Miami asylum office, and there's a massive difference in the approval rates there. So you got to keep that in mind. But just the fact that you have moved will not by itself affect your underlying asylum case. All right, let's go to TikTok. All right, so God Zadia Bless says, I go to my court hearing and the judge told me to carry all my evidence while I left my country. Is it going to finish on that day? So I think what you're asking is like, are you going to get the decision on the day of your next court hearing, which is your individual court hearing? I got messed up on TikTok. So here's the question. Yeah. The question is, can you expect to get a decision on the day of your individual hearing in immigration court? Now, remember, there's usually two different types of hearing in immigration court. The first one is called it's an administrative hearing. It's called a master calendar hearing. Totally weird name, right? That one is really administrative in nature. They're not going to ask you really usually substantive questions about your underlying asylum case. But the second hearing, called the individual hearing, or called the merits hearing, or hearing on the merits, those are all the different names that are used for the same thing. That's the one where, you really have to fight your case. You have to explain your case. And usually you do get the decision right then and there. The judge usually at the end of that hearing tells you their decision. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they say, I need to think about this one. I want to go back and review maybe the evidence more carefully, or review the transcript of the record or the recording of what's being said during that hearing, and think about it and do some legal research, and then they'll write out an opinion and they'll mail it to you. So I would guess maybe, 80% of the time you get the decision right then and there, but then maybe 20% of the time they say, sorry, we're going to have to mail it to you later. And that could take a while. It could be several weeks. Sometimes it's months. Sometimes it's longer. Hope that helps. Thank you for asking the question. All right, let's go back to YouTube. Okay, so All Travel Vlogs and Memories on YouTube says, hello, sir. I was in the military and my thoughts changed, and I don't want to be part of the dirty game, which they do. I resigned after completing my contracted tenure, but refused. Can I get asylum? So thanks for asking. It sounds like the question here is, can you get asylum in the United States if you refuse to do military service in your country, and you could be punished because of that? Well, first of all, you'd have to prove that you're at risk of really being seriously harmed in a way that is so bad that it would constitute persecution. Now, if your country has laws about punishments for evading the draft, or for running away from the military, or refusing to serve in the military, that involve a long prison sentence, then that would be harm that is sufficiently severe to count as persecution. But there's another element here, right? It's not enough just to show that you're likely to be persecuted. You also have to show that the persecution will be motivated by the fact that you possess one of the 5 protected characteristics: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Often, people refuse to do military service because of political opinion related issues, or if you don't want to commit to doing military service because the military in your country is committing grave human rights abuses, and that's the reason that you're nope, I'm not going to be involved in that, then actually, yes, that can help to get you asylum. But if you're just I don't want to be in the military, and you end up getting punished for that, in the same way that many, many, many other people in your country get punished because there's a law in the books that says if you don't do your military service, you get punished. Well, that would be probably considered legal punishment, right? It wouldn't be considered persecution on account of protected ground. The United States has rules like that too, right? If you fail to sign up for this thing that can get you drafted, that can lead you to be placed in the military, then you can get in trouble. So lots of countries have that, and the mere fact that you could be punished because you refuse to follow that rule doesn't mean you necessarily get asylum. But as I said earlier, there is some nuance here where if you're refusing to do it for certain reasons and the government wants to really punish you because of that and punish you excessively especially, then you might have a case. It's one of those where, like most cases, you really need to talk to an asylum lawyer to sort out whether you have a realistic chance of winning. Thanks for asking. All right, let's go. So Andre Muepe says on YouTube, was released from prison after crossing the border after a year. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that you were detained for so long. Can I apply for a work permit? Thank you for asking. So the question here is, can you apply for a work permit if you come to the U.S. southern border and then you're detained for a long time and then you get released? Well, the fact that you were detained or the fact that you came to the border, none of that really qualifies you for getting a work permit, but you can get a work permit based on a pending asylum case. All right, 150 days after you apply for asylum, you're eligible to get your work permit or to apply for your work permit based on your pending asylum case. And they can issue it and grant it and give it to you when you reach the 180-day mark of waiting after you've applied for asylum. It doesn't matter how you came to the country. It doesn't matter whether you were detained or not. So in this question, really my question for you is, have you applied for asylum? If so, 150 days after applying, you're eligible to get your work or to apply for your work permit. And note that, if you apply for asylum after the 1-year filing deadline, remember there's a rule that says, hey, normally you need to apply for asylum in your first year here. Even if you apply for asylum outside of that, like if you apply after you've been here a year and a half or 2 years, then you can still get the work permit based on your pending asylum case. Okay, you might not end up winning your case because of the 1-year filing deadline, but that does not keep you from getting a work permit based on your pending asylum case. Thanks for asking the question. Well, let's go to TikTok. How long will you be detained after you cross the border? Says Peterson WA, iSpot Media. Thanks for asking the question. It's an important one. Let's address it. So the question is, if you come to the U.S. southern border without a visa and you want to seek asylum, how long can you expect to be detained for? Well, so if you come to the border and you have contact with the immigration authorities, like if you go directly to a border crossing point, or if you cross the border not at an official checkpoint, and then you go and you turn yourself in, you find a border patrol patrolman and you say, hey, I need help, I want to seek asylum. Or if you are trying to get by without getting detected, yet they do detect you and they detain you, in any of those scenarios, yeah, you're going to be detained. You're going to be detained for at least a few hours, okay? There's a very good chance you're going to be detained for several days. There's a good chance it's actually could even be weeks. In some cases, it's longer. In some cases, it's even months, okay? There are some people who have been detained for over a year, including in some cases over 2 years. The thing is, there's no way to predict really how long it's going to be. These policies are changing every day. It all changes depending on how much space they have to keep people detained, okay? And you can't predict that. You'll never be able to sort of estimate and say, oh, this would be a good time to go because I'll probably, whoa, what is going on YouTube? How did that happen? That was amazing. You can't predict this, okay? You just got to know that if you want to come here to the southern border to seek asylum, you're going to be detained, okay? And you don't know how long. So you got to deal with that. You got to be ready for that. And this could be very, very difficult, okay? And getting here is dangerous as well. The Mexican side of the border is dangerous in a lot of spots. You got to keep these things in mind and weigh whether it's worth it to you to take those risks to come here to seek asylum, okay? All right, let us go to so Echo Funmi Echo says on TikTok, can I apply for EB2 with a pending asylum? Thanks for asking the question. The question is, if you've got an asylum case pending and you're waiting for your interview, or maybe you've already had your interview and you're waiting for a decision, the case is pending. During that time, can you apply for some kind of business or employment or investment-based status? For example, people often will ask whether they can apply for something called EB2 status, or maybe you've got funds to invest or an employer who might be able to sponsor you, or you qualify in some other way, right, for some kind of business, employment-based status. Can you get that while you've got an asylum case pending? The answer is it's tricky. Maybe, maybe not. It depends on several factors concerning like the timing of whether you applied for asylum before your status that you came in on ended, or if you never had status to begin with, that's a factor too. But also it kind of varies by where you live in the country, because different courts have had different opinions about how to handle this situation. And there's a lot of gray area. And here's the thing. I don't do this. I don't know. This is not the best question. I'm not the best person to ask this question to. You want to find the professional who works all day, every day on solving the exact problem that you need solved, okay? My law firm does political asylum. We do all kinds of asylum. We're an asylum law firm. That means every day we're doing asylum. We are up to date. We are on top of it. We're learning all the time and getting better and better, and it's what we do. It's what we live and breathe. If you want to get status or explore whether you might be able to get status one day based on employment or investment or something like that, then you need to talk to a lawyer, an immigration lawyer who focuses on those kinds of things. I've got lots of recommendations depending on like where you live in the country. I might prefer, or what kind of case it is, I might prefer to send you to one person over another. But yeah, I'm going to put you in touch with someone that I trust who focuses on that thing. Okay. And if you've got an asylum problem, or if you want to give yourself the best possible chance for winning your asylum case, then that's when you should talk to my law firm. Speaking of which, I want you to go over to winasylum.com. If you want to talk with us, if you want to schedule a consultation, an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum professionals, then go to winasylum.com. Winasylum.com, okay? That's where you can just easily, quickly schedule a consultation with us. And right now, it's free. All right. We used to charge for these consultations, but right now it's free. So if you've been thinking about maybe trying to get help with your asylum case, now is the time. All right. You're going to see that on the screen on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. It's winasylum.com. You're not seeing it on TikTok. I can't put the fancy graphics on the screen on TikTok. Winasylum.com. WINASYLUM.com. And that's where you can schedule a consultation. It's going to look like this. It's super easy on your mobile. Here's what it looks like on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. TikTok, take my word for it. It's easy, all right? It's super quick and easy to schedule a consultation with us at winasylum.com. Yep, let's go to the questions. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Very, very cool. All right. Let's go to TikTok. Okay. Interesting. Oh, thank you for that. All right. No way. Okay. TikTok. Mikhail says, already applied for asylum. Do I need a lawyer now? I recommend it. Thank you for asking. The question is, if you've already applied for asylum, does it still make sense to hire a lawyer now? I mean, if you already applied, like, is it too late to really get help in a meaningful way in your asylum case? And the answer is, you should absolutely still hire an asylum lawyer, okay? There's a ton that an effective asylum lawyer can still do to strengthen your case, despite that you already applied. People hire us all the time after they apply on their own, or maybe they had another lawyer they applied with, but then they decide, you know what? It's time to get serious about my case. I want to get the best help possible. And they call our office, we analyze their case, and we tell them whether we think we can help them. And if so, we tell them how we're going to do it. And for people that have already applied, there's really 3 core steps that we're going to take. 1, we're going to work together to create an asylum road map. This is a packet of information that we're going to submit to the asylum office or the immigration court that shows the decision maker exactly how our client meets all the qualifications on paper. It's a roadmap to show the judge or the officer how to get to the answer yes in your case in the easiest way possible. It consists of a declaration from you, evidence that we're going to advise that you try to get, and a legal brief that we write connecting all the dots and applying the facts of your case to the law to show how you meet all the requirements. Second, number two is preparation. We're going to do some intensive practice sessions before your asylum interview or individual court hearing, where you're going to experience everything that you will experience on the day of the real interview, so that you know what kind of questions you're going to get. You know how it feels to be in this position. You know what the different procedures are for the day are. All of this is going to help you to feel more comfortable and confident and ready to do a good job on your big day. And we're going to do another sort of follow-up session where we're going to give you feedback about how you did in the first practice session and give you all of our best tips. And then third, we're going to represent you during your asylum interview or immigration court hearing so that the officer or judge understands your case and to ensure that your rights are protected. All right. So those are the things we're going to do to help someone who's already applied for asylum, but now they've decided, you know what, I want to give myself the best possible chance for asylum success. So it's not too late. Thanks for asking that. Nurki says on TikTok, Brian, is your office located at Washington? So the question is, where are our offices located? So we're based in Houston, Texas. All right. Houston, Texas, but we help people all over the country. It actually doesn't matter at all where you live in the United States. In immigration, if a lawyer is licensed to practice in any state, they can do immigration in every state, okay? So we're not limited to helping people just in Texas where our office is based, but rather we can do immigration law both at USCIS asylum offices and in the immigration courts anywhere in the United States. And we've got lots of clients throughout the country. Of course, we've got a lot in Texas. That's where we're based. We've also got tons in California, in Florida, and New York. We've got a bunch around the Chicago area and really everywhere in between. So it doesn't matter where you live. Call us today if you want to get help with your asylum case. You want to explore how having an asylum lawyer on your side may really help you to increase your chances for success. Thanks for asking the question. If you want to give us a call, it's 713-909-0401. Again, the number 713-909-0401. Call us right now and schedule an asylum strategy session so that one of our asylum professionals can talk with you and get a sense for what's going on in your case and tell you whether we think we can help you. If we think that we can help you, we're going to tell you exactly how we'll do it, which is actually really important. You'll find that if you shop around for lawyers, or maybe you've already got one, you're probably going to find that most immigration lawyers will just be like, oh, don't worry, we'll help you. We'll do some things to help your case. We'll do some things, and they won't tell you what they're going to do because actually they're not going to do much. When I was an asylum officer with the government at the Houston Asylum Office, I was actually shocked to see how little most immigration lawyers did in their clients' cases. Most of them did virtually nothing, okay? They would maybe help a little bit with filling out the asylum application form, and that's about it. And then they would say things to their clients like, oh, don't worry about the interview. We'll meet up for like 15 minutes before it. I'll give you some tips at that time about how to answer the questions. It'll all be fine. Newsflash, that is not enough. That is entirely insufficient. This interview is much harder than you expect, okay? The officer doesn't just let you sort of explain yourself and tell your story. Rather, they're going to ask you question after question after question. They're constantly interrupting you. They're changing topics frequently. And the truth is, many of them are anti-immigrant, and they're just looking for excuses to be able to deny you. So you do need to practice a lot. You need to be seriously prepared. You need to have the case laid out ahead of time in writing through your declaration, evidence, and a legal brief that your attorney should write. But guess what? Most lawyers don't write legal briefs at the asylum office or even in immigration court. Most of them don't either. So if you're thinking about hiring an asylum lawyer, ask them, what are you actually going to do for me? Tell me concretely what steps you're going to take to help me win my case. All right. Also, ask them what percentage of their caseload is asylum. How much of their time do they spend on asylum percentage-wise? Because most immigration lawyers only dabble in asylum. They just do it every once in a while. And to my mind, that is wholly insufficient. Asylum is too complex, all right? It's one of the more complex areas within immigration law, such that if you're not doing this stuff every single day, you're going to get behind. There's just too much to keep up with, okay? It's moving too fast. It's too hard. It's too complex to just dabble in it and expect to be good at it. At my law firm, All we do is asylum all day, every day. We want to be great. We want to be the best at asylum. And that's why we focus on asylum, all right? So if you've got an asylum problem, you need someone who focuses on that problem. At least that's what I think. All right, let's go back to the questions. Let's go over to YouTube, shall we, for questions on YouTube. Where did those go? Okay, there's the chat. Can you get economic asylum? Says Majdi. Thank you, Majdi, for the question. All right. So the question is, can you get asylum based on economic persecution? What does economic persecution mean? Well, so if, let's say, the government in your home country sort of blacklists you such that you can't get any jobs, like if they, put your name on a list and they tell all the companies, like, don't hire this person, such that you can't get a job. Or if they just straight up take your money away, like if they take the money out of your bank account and make it such that you have a really, really hard time to get by. Things like that would fall under sort of this umbrella of economic related harm, economic persecution. So the question is, can you get asylum because of that? Well, yeah, if it's really, really bad. Those examples that I just gave you, like if you were blacklisted and you couldn't get a job and the government literally took your money, or if they took away your house, things like that, but like they never actually physically harmed you, would those things, that economic harm, would that be bad enough to count as persecution? Yeah, it could be. It could be. It's rare that a judge or an asylum officer will decide that, okay, the harm that you suffered is bad enough to count as persecution, to rise the level of persecution based just on economic harms. But sometimes it happens, or at least it can contribute to the overall persecution analysis. Because remember, you can sort of stack incidents of harm or modes of harm to get to persecution. So let's say you've been blacklisted and it's really hard to get a job, but also the government is just constantly harassing you and threatening you. Well, all that stuff considered together might rise to the level of persecution, even though it's not super, super, super bad economic harm, but considered cumulatively with other things like the constant harassment and the credible threats that put you at real fear and are causing psychological harm. Yeah, that stuff considered together could be persecution. Okay. But you still got to prove that it's on account of one of the protected grounds, right? Because of your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. All right, let's go to TikTok. So Nurki, just to be clear, yeah, we don't have an office in Washington, but we have clients in Washington, both Washington State and around Washington, D.C. So just go to winasylum.com to schedule that consultation with us, okay? Super easy, WINASYLUM.com. That's where you can quickly, easily schedule an asylum strategy session so that one of our asylum professionals can see what's going on and tell you whether we think we can help you. And if so, we're going to tell you how. We're going to tell you concretely what steps we're going to take to help you and give you the best possible chance of securing your future in America through asylum, okay? All right, let's go. All right, Hugh says, I want to sue, but I haven't sent my supplemental filing. What would you recommend? Thanks for asking the question, Hugh. So the question is, should you go ahead and sue the government in a Mandamus lawsuit if you haven't yet provided to the asylum office all of the stuff that you want to provide in support of your case in writing? Now, to provide context, we like to submit for our clients what we call an Asylum Road Map. It's this packet that consists of a declaration, evidence, and a legal brief from my office where we apply the facts to the law and do an analysis to show why our client meets all the requirements. And we also provide country conditions information that backs up what we're arguing. And the question here is, okay, so if you haven't submitted that stuff yet, does it make sense to go ahead and sue in a Mandamus lawsuit now to force your interview, or should you go ahead and do that supplemental filing first? Well, a Mandamus lawsuit is going to take at least, it's usually going to take a few weeks to run its course and to get your interview. Usually it takes a few months, on average, maybe like 3 or 4 months before you actually have your interview from the time that you initiate the Mandamus lawsuit. But sometimes it is much quicker. Sometimes it's like a week after you file the lawsuit that you do actually get the interview. We've had that happen. Look, I would say it's probably, no, you know what? I would say you don't necessarily need to wait. I mean, do the two at the same time. Presumably you're going to have a lawyer helping you with this, right? The lawyer should be able to do both at the same time. We take on clients all the time that are hiring us to do both of those things, right? The the Asylum Road Map, as well as like representing them for the rest of their case, preparing them for the interview, and then representing them at the interview, but also doing the Mandamus lawsuit. And we start both those things at the same time. And then it just takes us 2 to 3 or 4 weeks to put together the Asylum Road Map. And you know, if we ever, in the cases where we have gotten the asylum interview quicker than anticipated, like just a week after suing, we can just, we work late. We work super hard to put a great asylum roadmap together and get it submitted before the interview. So I would say you don't need to wait. I think you can move forward on those things, both of them at the same time. Okay. Let's see. Hugh, you should talk with us. This is what we do. We do this all the time. We love this stuff. The question was about, the question is, what is a Mandamus lawsuit and what can it do for you? Well, it's great. All right. Let me just start by saying it's an incredibly powerful tool that my office has been using to great effect recently. Here's the thing. The government has an obligation to give you your interview and your decision in a reasonable time. If they don't do that, if they are taking too long, you can sue them. This is done in a federal court where you file a lawsuit called a Mandamus lawsuit. It's a Latin word. You're asking a judge to tell the asylum office, hey, do your job. Give this person their interview and their decision and do it now. Do it quickly. And it works. If you've been waiting for multiple years for your interview and you want to get on with your life, you want to get your interview so that you can get your decision and get your asylum and move on with your life, then you should talk with an asylum lawyer about using this, a Mandamus lawsuit, to move your case forward. And I always get this question when we bring up the Mandamus lawsuit. Will it negatively affect my underlying asylum case? The answer is no. I don't worry about this at all for my clients. I don't think it's going to affect you negatively at all, okay? I'll say more about those reasons in a minute, but for why. But short answer is no. It's not going to hurt your underlying asylum case. Do it. All right. Thank you for that. Very nice. What's going on TikTok? Will studying at Harvard University help me in my asylum case? After this video goes, well, you're on TikTok, so you go over to YouTube, search for political asylum lawyers, and in like 15 minutes after this video is done, after this live show is done, you can click to watch the recording. And I talked for a few minutes at the beginning of this live about this exact question. And the short answer, no, it won't really help your asylum case, unfortunately. So let's see. All right, we've got a question here from Sarah A. Says a question, Brian. Why are cases from North Africa viewed as less credible? How to deal with a suspicious agent during an interview? So thanks for your question. I appreciate it, Sarah. The question is, why are cases from certain regions of the world viewed suspiciously at the asylum office? Yeah, it's true. When I was an asylum officer, I could see that a lot of my colleagues did look suspiciously on cases from certain regions, including basically all of Africa and all of the Middle East and also South Asia. I think cases from Latin America were looked on with less suspicion. But when it comes to Africa, South Asia, and the Middle East, the officers often think, oh, this is probably fraud. When they see where you're from, they're like, oh, this is probably fake. They're probably lying about this. And of course, it should not be that way. Why is it that way? Well, ignorance. There's a lot of ignorance about those parts of the world that people in the United States are not as familiar with. Part of it probably is racism as well. There's a lot of racism, in my opinion, at the asylum office. So, let me say though, there is a lot of fraud in asylum cases. And is there more from those regions than from other regions? I've never seen like a study on it. I don't know, maybe. There are a few countries in particular that I would say I agree. I agree that like when I was an asylum officer, I did believe that certain countries tended to have a higher proportion of those cases that involve what I thought was probably fraud than others. And that unfortunately kind of ruins it, for the rest of the people from that country, right? So you do start out with a strike against you. You are going into this at a disadvantage if you're from one of those regions that I listed. So you've just got to work extra hard to overcome this by presenting the strongest case possible, making sure there's no inconsistencies in your story and in your written materials and in your testimony, and also just practicing and being really prepared for your asylum interview to do the best possible job and avoid errors. You need an asylum lawyer to help you with that. All right. So Mach says, I came on a L1B work visa. Will I lose my visa and right to work once I apply for asylum? So thank you. The question is, if you came to the United States on a work visa, like an L visa, and then you apply for asylum, will that negatively affect your previous or your original business status, like your Lbased status? And the answer is no. For that particular status and for like an H-1B status, applying for asylum will in no way negatively affect that existing status. So that's good news. All right. So you should not refrain from applying for asylum if you're afraid of being harmed in your country, because of concerns over affecting your underlying status, because it won't. All right, good news for you. All right, can I? Miguel says, "Lara Saleman." Miguel, I don't know if you know this. I have a YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search for Asilo Aprobado. I have a YouTube channel called. If you assuming you're a Spanish speaker, maybe not, but if you are, Asilo Aprobado on YouTube is in Spanish. Can I add more evidence relevant to my case that happens years after I left the country? So yes, good question. Thank you. The question is, can you add additional evidence to your case? Like if things have happened that are relevant to your case after you applied for asylum, well, can you add new evidence about those things? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Many asylum seekers are waiting for many months or even years for their interview after they've applied for asylum. So if something else happens that's relevant and you've got some kind of proof, some evidence about it, it makes perfect sense that you would want to let the asylum office know that you've got this new evidence. And yeah, you can do that. At any time, you can supplement, you can send in new evidence, all right? I recommend that you not do this on like a piecemeal fashion. Like, hey, every time something comes up and you get one new document that you think is relevant, that you send that in. And then a week later, you send this in. And then a month later, you send that other thing in. I think you should do it all together in like one big packet that I call an Asylum Road Map. But the good news is that, yeah, you can definitely submit additional evidence really at any time before your asylum interview. Okay. Actually, even after your asylum interview, if you have your interview and you're waiting, it takes a long time to get a decision. If something else happens that's relevant, you can include that. You can write a statement about it and you can send in new evidence about it. A lot of officers won't consider that, but some of them will. They should. They're supposed to. They should. So yeah, if it's relevant to your case, sure, send it in. All right. Oh, wow. Assad says on YouTube, says, I did my interview last Monday. I've been waiting a week now. Assad, send a follow-up note here on YouTube. Were you, did they give you a mail out notice? Did they give you a letter that said, we're going to mail your decision to you. Don't come back here. We're going to mail it to you in the mail. Or did they say, come back in 2 weeks? I assume because you said I'm waiting a week now that they probably told you they're going to mail it to you. So you thought you might have it by now. But this is not surprising at all that you haven't gotten it yet. So the question is, how long will it take you to receive the decision in your asylum case after your interview at the USCIS Asylum Office? And the answer is there's no way to predict this. Okay. How it works is if you live near the asylum office, they're going to give you what's called a pickup notice. The letter they give you before you leave the office after your interview will say, hey, you need to come back here in 2 weeks and pick up your asylum decision. That actually gives you the best chance of getting it timely, getting it soon, because usually and probably, 70, 75% maybe of cases, the decision is in fact ready when you come back in 2 weeks. Sometimes it's not. And they say, oh, sorry, we don't have it. We're going to mail it to you, which is very, very bad. It's annoying. But if you don't live near the asylum office, and under certain circumstances, even if you do live near the asylum office, they're going to say, oh, we're going to mail it to you. Don't come here. We're going to mail it to you. Now that who knows how long that could take. It could take a long time. They try to get all asylum decisions made in 2 weeks and mailed out in 2 weeks, but very, very often that doesn't happen. Sometimes it takes many weeks. Sometimes it takes months. Sometimes it takes years. But here you can sue, okay? Look back at the time you applied for asylum. If you applied at least 3 years ago, then you're probably in a pretty good position to force them to give you your decision by way of a Mandamus lawsuit, okay? Now, Assad, in your case, you've only been waiting a week. Give it a little more time. Give it a few more weeks. But then the question becomes, if you applied, for asylum more than 3 years ago and you still haven't gotten your decision, then you should consider suing to force them to give you the decision if you don't get it in the next few weeks from now. Okay. All right. Hair Glim says, second master calendar hearing, LGBT asylum case. I didn't see your question about. What's your question about it? Okay. Maj says, do you handle cases in DC? Absolutely. Yeah. I love DC. I've spent quite a bit of time there. So before I was an asylum officer with USCIS, I was a diplomat. And so as part of that, I did stints in the DC area for training, for like learning languages and learning diplomatic tradecraft before going out to the overseas assignments. I love DC, and yeah, we know that area well. We have clients there. We definitely have cases there. We've had success there in that area. So yeah, we can definitely help you in Washington, D.C., Maj. So go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com, and that's where you can schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum professionals. Listen, we want to hear from you. We want to see what's going on. We want to understand your situation and tell you, what we think your chances for success are, whether we think we can help you, and if so, how we're going to do that. Okay. So, for those of you who joined, it looks like a bunch of people just joined. I'm Brian Manning, and I'm a political asylum lawyer. My law firm is based in Texas, but we help people all over the country. Doesn't matter where you are. We help people all over. All right. Go to winasylum.com to schedule your asylum strategy session. If you prefer to use the phone, that's fine. I think online is easier and better. But if you want to give us a call, it's 713-909-0401. Again, 713-909-0401. That's where you can call to schedule your consultation with us today. Call us today. Call us right now. Please, let's do this. Let's talk. Let's get started. All right, let's go take a few more questions. Mo says on YouTube, if you're stopped by the police without a driver's license and you applied for asylum, will you be sent back to your country? You're definitely not going to get sent back like right away for sure. There are certain there's a lot behind this that we won't get into here, but like the basic idea is there's certain offenses or crimes that you can commit that could lead the police to like turn you over to ICE, the agency that handles deportations, and they could start deportation proceedings against you. They could put you in immigration court, basically, where they're trying to deport you. But you would still get a chance, even in that scenario, you would still get a chance to explain your asylum case to the immigration judge. Your case would just be like transferred from USCIS over to the immigration court, and you would have the asylum application pending still, and you would get to explain that case there. So that's the good news, is they're not going to like deport you without giving you a chance to fight your case, your asylum case, that is. Okay. All right. Good question, Eddie. Eddie's talking about, I worked under the table for 12 days. I couldn't depend on anyone. Everyone hated me for lack of my religious belief. In the airport by immigration, I confessed to everything. Plan to tell the truth in my asylum interview. Will that be enough for them to reject my case? Thanks for asking. So Eddie's asking, the question is, if you've worked without permission in the United States, is that going to be enough to get your asylum case denied? The answer, thankfully, is no. Now, listen, it's true that working without permission can have negative consequences for certain immigration cases. The good news is that asylum is not one of those cases. So the fact that you worked without permission is something that will not keep you from getting asylum. It really won't even be like a negative factor, to be honest with you. It's pretty common. Many people do it because many people find themselves here without a lot of support, and you have to live, right? And you may have obligations behind yourself to family members and other people. So, and you can't work right until 180 days after you've applied for asylum is the earliest that you can get your work permit. So it's really hard. And a lot of people just make the decision to go ahead and start working before they get their work permit based on their pending asylum case. Good news is that it will not negatively affect your asylum case if you do that. Okay. So I hope that makes you feel better, Eddie. All right. Yeah. Oh, Mo. Mo, you got to stop asking that question over and over and over again. I'm going to have to mute you. But I answered it, so you can stop. Thanks, Mo. All right, so good question by Sarah. What kind of psychological challenges are considered as an extraordinary circumstance for the 1 year deadline? Does the asylum agent take that into consideration? Thanks for asking the question. So the question is, can psychological or emotional challenges that you're facing be something that can excuse the 1 year filing deadline, right? Remember, in the United States, if you want to get asylum, you're supposed to apply for it during your first year after having arrived. If you don't, then you won't get asylum unless you qualify for one of sort of two categories of exceptions to the 1 year filing deadline. And one of those exceptions, one of those categories is called extraordinary circumstances. And underneath that is included things like if you've experienced some psychological or emotional challenges that have prevented you from filing timely, that can count as a valid excuse. So what kind of stuff? Well, if you're deeply depressed, for example, and it has to be happening during your first year in the United States. But if during your first year here you are, let's say, deeply depressed, and you to the point that like you can hardly function, like maybe you can't get a job, you can't hardly take care of yourself. Like the idea is, well, how could we expect someone in that position to be able to like really be thinking about and worried about figuring out how to apply for asylum, right? We basically give them a second chance and say, okay, it's okay that you didn't apply during your first year. So there's no sort of like list of certain ailments or certain challenges or prognoses or anything like that you can point to and be like, oh, this counts as an extraordinary circumstance, but this doesn't. It's just sort of overall, can you convince the asylum officer that that you should be given an exception because things were really, really bad. So it's something that an asylum lawyer can really help you to develop and to help you explain your story in an impactful way. And also they can apply that to the laws around this and to court cases where judges have considered this question, and they can sort of analogize and say, well, look, in that case, the judge said that, yes, these different things that were facing the person were enough to count as an extraordinary circumstances exception to the 1 year filing deadline. My client, is similar, and they had these things. So I'd talk to an asylum lawyer to get help if you think you want to apply, or if you've already applied and you need to be ready to argue about why you qualify for an exception to the 1 year filing deadline based on extraordinary circumstances. Thanks. Good question. Eddie says, can they reject you for not applying within 1 year, for being an atheist and now applying 3 years later as a Christian because I didn't have as much fear as I do now, and because applying for asylum? So I think I understand the question, Eddie. So the question is, let's say you came to the United States and you didn't really have a fear of being harmed in your country, but then something changes. Maybe you've been here for 2, 3, 4 years, something changes, and now you've got a good reason to be afraid. Well, can you get asylum despite that you didn't apply for it during your first year in the United States? Because remember, there's a rule that says normally you got to apply for asylum during your first year. The answer is yes. If something changes, like in this question, the example was, the person became a Christian, okay? Like they were here for 3 years, and then they became a Christian, and this is the thing. This becoming a Christian is the thing that puts them at risk in their country. Well, that could be what's called a changed circumstance. There's two categories of exceptions to the 1 year filing deadline. One of them is called changed circumstances. So it doesn't matter when that happens. It could be 1 year and 1 day after you're here. It could be 2 years. It could be 8 years. It could be 15 years. As long as something has changed that like now you have a real chance of being persecuted and it would be on account of protected ground, then that kind of thing could serve as a valid exception to the 1 year filing deadline. Thank you for asking the question. All right. How to withdraw. Oh, okay. Yeah. Mo, come on, man. Nice. Well, this sounds like a client. Hi, Brian. I've hired your office to represent me. Thank you. It's LGBT case from China. Recently we've encountered cyber violence because of our identity from Chinese social media. Can I add this to my statement? Yes. Email us. Email us at the email address that you use to communicate with my office, and we need to incorporate this. Absolutely. Thanks for asking. Christina says, hey, Brian, can you qualify for COVID-19 vaccine waive? Do you do that? I'm starting to applying for a green card, but they need COVID vaccine. I don't think vaccine is good for our body. Are you asking about asylum or for your green card? Well, I'll just say this. The fact that you don't want to get a COVID vaccine or any other really vaccination, and you could be punished because of that, like if you could be fined because of that, that in and of itself will not be enough for you to win asylum in the United States. Okay. All right. Interesting. Who can be an interpreter at the USCIS Asylum Office? Is there a website for this service? Thanks for asking, 23 Drone View. The question is, who can serve as an interpreter at an asylum office interview at USCIS? So the interpreter cannot be your spouse, and it also cannot be your lawyer, and it cannot be a representative from your home country's government. Other than that, it can be really anyone who is at least, I think 18 is the minimum age. Now, that's who it can be. That's not who it should be. You need to hire a professional, okay? This is extremely important. I've seen asylum cases lost because of poor interpretation. This stuff it's hard. Interpreting is hard in general, but in the context of an asylum interview, it's stressful. The vocabulary is different than what most people are used to. It's difficult. You need to hire a professional. Your cousin, your sister's friend who's pretty fluent in English and fluent in your language is not going to cut it, okay? This is too important. Pay $200 up to maybe $400 or $500 that some people charge for a full day to hire an interpreter. Do whatever it takes to get that done. It's super, super important. Now, your second question was, is there like a website for this? No, there's no website that I know of that's like, oh, a list of all interpreters who can do asylum office interviews. No, unfortunately, I don't know that. I mean, my office, we have built up, relationships with people that we trust for a lot of the different regions where asylum cases are heard in a lot of different languages. But now, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have advice as to like how to find the proper website to, or the resource for finding someone. All right. Check with people, in your community, check with others who have had asylum interviews that speak your language to see who they use and try to get information about those people that way is what I recommend. Okay. Let's see. Okay. On TikTok, we got, after you submit your asylum application, how long does it take for you to get confirmation? Good question. The question is, after you apply for asylum, how long does it take for you to get the confirmation, the thing that's called a receipt notice? This is the letter that basically says, hey, we have received your asylum application. It arrived and is pending as of X date, like the date that it got to their mailroom. Okay. So how long does it take you to get that letter, that receipt notice from the government? Well, in the immigration court context, you actually don't get this. You don't get any kind of letter that says, we received it on X date, it's pending. But you do from the asylum office. If your case is an affirmative asylum case, you're applying with USCIS, you'll get a receipt notice. But when depends on whether you applied online or by mail on paper. If you applied online, you'll probably get an electronic version of this receipt notice the same day or like the next business day after you've applied. That's one of the things that's great about applying for asylum online is you get this receipt notice pretty much right away. If you apply by paper with USCIS, by mail, it's going to take months. We've seen it take something like 7 to 10 or 11 months. It's ridiculous. It's super frustrating. So keep that in mind. That's yet another reason why I encourage people to apply online rather than by mail, okay? Because you get this receipt notice right away, and then you have certainty and confidence and peace of mind knowing that, hey, I got my asylum application in, it's been received, my case is in process. That's a good feeling to have. And you can get that right away by applying for asylum online. So that's what I recommend. All right. Go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. Go there right now and schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum professionals so that we can see what's going on, tell you whether we think we can help you, and if so, explain how we're going to do that, all right? We love helping people secure their future in America through asylum. That's what we do. Asylum is what we do all day, every day. Give us a call so we can talk about this, okay? 713-909-0401 if you prefer to call rather than schedule online. Online's easier and quicker. Do it that way. But calling is fine too. 713-909-0401. I'm Brian Manning, and it's a pleasure to support you in your asylum journey. We'll be back here live very soon. So I look forward to hearing your questions the next time we talk live. Thanks, everyone. And have a good afternoon and a good evening. And thank you for being part of the asylum seeker community. It's an honor and a pleasure to support you again in your asylum journey. Thank you. Bye, guys. Bye, TikTok. Take care. Bye, guys.